This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
European Union negotiators struck a deal on reforms to the bloc's huge farming subsidy program on Friday, introducing new measures aimed at protecting small farms and curbing agriculture's environmental impact. The deal ends a near three-year struggle over the future of the EU Common Agricultural Policy, which will suck up around a third of the EU's 2021 to 2027 budget, spending €387 billion on payments to farmers in support for rural development. Representatives from EU member states and European Parliament clinched the agreement, which aims to shift money from intensive farming practices to protecting nature, and rein in the 10% of EU greenhouse gases emitted by agriculture.
The first deepwater gas field fully operated by a Chinese company, Lingshui 17-2, started production on Friday, the country's national offshore producer CNOOC Limited said. The gas project, in the South China Sea, is expected to reach peak production of 328 million cubic feet of natural gas and 6,751 barrels of condensate per day in 2022, with a 10-year stable production period, CNOOC said in a press release. A total of 11 production wells are planned in the gas field, CNOOC said.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. refining capacity last year fell 4.5% to 18.13 million barrels per day, BPD, from a record 18.98 million barrels of oil per day a year earlier, the U.S. government reported on Friday, reflecting weak demand for motor fuels during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was the first annual decline since 2018. When capacity fell by 18,530 barrels of oil per day and the largest since 2012, according to Energy Information Administration, EIA, data. That year capacity shrank 414,192 barrels of oil per day following the Great Recession. U.S. refiners last year suffered deep financial losses and closed 5 facilities as the pandemic slashed fuel sales. Average U.S. gasoline consumption fell 13% last year, with gasoline and diesel prices hitting a 4-year low, according to government figures.
The U.S. Supreme Court on Friday made it easier for small oil refineries to win exemptions from a federal law requiring increasing levels of ethanol and other renewable fuels to be blended into their products, a major setback for biofuel producers. The justices overturned a lower court decision that had faulted the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for giving refineries in Wyoming, Utah and Oklahoma extensions on waivers from Renewable Fuel Standard (RFS) requirements under a law called the Clean Air Act, even though the company's prior exemptions had expired. The extensions at issue were given to units of HollyFrontier Corp. HFC, N and CVR Energy Inc. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. The government of Nauru plans to ask the International Seabed Authority, ISA, next week to fast-track the adoption of seabed mining regulations, a source with direct knowledge told Reuters on Friday, in a sign of growing pressure to launch the controversial new industry. The so-called 2-year rule would compel the ISA to allow seabed mining to go ahead within 2 years, effectively setting a deadline for the body to finalize mining regulations. The source, who was not authorized to speak to the media and declined to be named, said Nauru would send the request to the ISA on June 30.
Copper prices held steady on Friday after U.S. President Joe Biden embraced a bipartisan Senate infrastructure deal valued at $1.2 trillion over 8 years, which helped reinforce expectations of stronger demand. However, worries about the U.S. Federal Reserve tightening monetary policy sooner than expected subdued some of the optimism and weighed on copper prices in afternoon trade, traders said. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was little changed at around $9,417 a ton at 16:05 GMT. Prices of the metal used in the power and construction industries are up around 5% this week.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Ukraine's grain exports are unlikely to exceed 45 million tons in the 2020-21 season that runs July to June, compared with 56.7 million tons sold abroad in 2019-20, Agriculture Ministry data showed on Friday. The data showed 44.485 million tons of grain had already been exported or loaded to vessels as of June 25 before the end of the season on June 30. An additional 512,000 tons of grain were due to be exported in coming days, the data showed.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.